What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Gen Z Money Podcast, where we turn financial peace to your reality. I'm your host, James Bowman, and today's guest is none other than Amy Tran from the Financial Fitness Guide. I think so many people are going to be able to relate to Amy's story and not only where she started, but where she's coming from, you know what I mean, and where she's going. As you'll hear throughout the interview, she has, ran into and made some really big, potentially crippling financial decisions up to this point in her life. But you'll realize that even with that being said, she still hasn't given up on becoming, wealthy in the long run, right? So she's dealt with student loans, she's dealt with credit cards, she's dealt with having to do delayed gratification and so many other things that, like I said, I really think you guys are going to be able to relate to. With that being said, guys, I don't want to give too much of her story away. So let's go ahead and get right into the interview. What's going on, Amy? Welcome to the Gen Z Money Podcast. How you doing today?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I am doing amazing. So I found you on Instagram, your
Mhm.
financial fitness kind of shebang, right?
Right.
And you have like a very fascinating approach to finances. Like you have debt, but you're also investing, and you also you do budgets and all these creative things that I really wanted to, have a conversation about and get into the weeds, and hopefully people might be able to relate to your story.
Right. Right.
So, Amy, let's go ahead and start from the way back beginning, right? Let's go little Amy, middle
Oh,
school,
geez.
elementary school. How was money talked about and viewed as you grew up?
I think it was so we're first generation immigrants, and I think with my parents, it was more about saving. Not just, there was no talk about like, oh yeah, save it here, or like save it in a high yield savings account. It was just like, hey, you're like, don't spend your money all in one place, save it. Um, Basically my parents were, they taught me like the value of a dollar, but um nothing on, like nothing that I know now. Like all the stuff that I put on my page now is either self-taught or what I learned from other people. So basically it was just, save your money, don't spend it, save, just save for what you need was the general, I guess, money talk in our house.
Yeah, I think that's super common. Is like it seems as though the more interviews I do, because I always ask this question to everyone,
Mhm.
and it seems as though there's about three categories when it comes to this. It's parents that tell their kids, spend your money, live your life, enjoy it, blah blah. Then there's parents who are saying, save your money for a rainy day and always have savings and stuff. And then there's a third one, which is invest your money, have your money working for you. And so it sounds like you were right there in that second category of save your money for a rainy day. You never
Yep.
know when things are going to go bad. So always
Yep.
have your money. Does that sound about right?
Yep.
Gotcha. So you have, in my opinion, a ton of debt. So can we go back to how did you start accumulating your kind of debts? Like, what are they? How did all that begin?
Um, my biggest debt obviously is student loans. Um, I was a it was so funny. So I was a biology major before I became like an accounting major. But school most of my debt came from school because whenever I switched from science to accounting, my plan was to get my CPA license, which I'm still pursuing just because, I've done so much education for it. So that's just for me. But switching to accounting, I had to make my bachelor's 5 years instead of four. And then I waited a couple of years and then went back and got my master's. So for my master's, it was mostly like I had to take out, I think that's where the majority like of my loans came from is was from my master's program that I did. And then I had credit card debt that I was accumulating throughout college just because, you know, I had to pay for books. Like you have to pay for your material somehow. And I didn't, you know, want to ask my parents to help me because I like my parents work really hard. So it's like I didn't feel like I needed to ask them, you know, for money. Like I don't like to do that. So I was just accumulating debt from student loans, but also credit cards and just like not at the time, like just being your typical college student, like not even realizing what I was like that I was basically building debt. And then just, you know, making minimum payments on credit cards and like not, I wasn't able to do what I'm able to do now. But yeah, mostly from school. And then my credit card debt was also just like, I mean, I was also, you know, guilty of like swiping my credit card left and right for, you know, food, like going out to eat or just hanging with friends and getting gas and just, you know, all the stuff that you like to do as a typical college student.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit, right? So you said you initially started for biology and then you later transitioned.
Yes.
What was it that made you go the biology route in the first place? Like, was there a certain profession you were hoping to pursue?
Yeah, I was gonna go into like research. Um, and I feel like I was kind of more living someone else's life, you know, in my family, like what they wanted me to do. And then I just don't like chemistry. But you know, you have to take the like you can't do biology without chemistry. So like I couldn't not take the chemistry courses. So I think I actually switched my major 2 weeks before my junior year of college and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And I think my mom kind of realized that I was unhappy in that field. So whenever I told her, she was very supportive of like me switching to what I really wanted to learn about more and like had more interest in and actually like did really well in. So that, you know, I just made the switch and it was a little bit less stressful than the biology route for me.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense. And I mean, this isn't something that's like, it's just you. There are students
right.
all the time that are always switching majors. You go into
Mhm.
college and some people just don't understand what they really want to do in life. They
Yes.
haven't found themselves, they haven't found their path. And unfortunately, I think college is kind of the wrong place to try to find your path because you're just paying at that point.
Yes.
So you said that, I guess the upside is you weren't so far down the biology route to where you had to completely restart. It sounds like after, because the first 2 years of college is normally the prerequisites, right? The
Yes.
general knowledge that
Yep.
everyone has to take. So it wasn't like you were completely wiping the canvas clean. You just
Right.
kind of started down the biology path and then you were like, that accounting thing over there, I'm gonna go that way. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
to so that is the bright side of this, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So why did you, just to satisfy my curiosity, you got your bachelor's, why did you go back for your master's? What was the causation there?
So for the state of Missouri, you have to have 150 credits to sit and to take your CPA exam. And then I just wanted more knowledge in the accounting field. Like it covered everything across the board. So whenever I took a break, my initial thought was to, you know, keep like continue school instead of stopping because I heard, you know, once you stop, it's like it's hard to get back into. But that actually wasn't the case for me. I'm glad I took a couple of years off, and I only took 2 years off was because I wanted my major to be like my master's specifically to cover every aspect of accounting. And the school I went to, I actually got my master's where I got my bachelor's. Just because at the time I was actually in education for a little bit and it was just working out with my schedule at the time where it offered on like everything was online. Um so I didn't have to like, stop doing whatever like I was doing while I was like working full time and like coaching and stuff to, just stop and like, okay, well, I got to go to school now. Everything was online, which was great for me. But also I didn't want just like a master's of business and administration with an emphasis on accounting, because you can only cover so much, but with my master's specifically in accounting, it just covered all aspects of accounting, just tax, audit, like financial planning, all of that stuff. Like it just covered all of it across the board. So then whatever job field I could potentially get into, I have already kind of had the education for it.
Gotcha. You know what? That's really fascinating. I didn't know that there was actually, at least in, you said Missouri, there's a credit limit associated with becoming a certified financial or CPA, certified personal
Public
accountant.
accountant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
public. Yeah. So I knew that, I was testing you. But I didn't realize there was a credit limit. I knew that there was you needed some sort of degree, whether it was a bachelor's or a master's,
Mhm.
but that's something good to know. I'd probably, if there are listeners out there who want to become CPAs, you might want to look into that before you go down the route, because what I would
Yeah.
hate for is you go in there, you get your bachelor's, you're like, I'm going to be a CPA. And then they're like, hey,
Right.
buddy, you missing some stuff.
Yeah.
So,
And see, it's so like they're so specific, but also like efficient. And it's different for every state, like some states that you look at, they're like, oh, we only want you to have, you can like apply, send your application in with by the end of your undergrad, like if you don't, they let you, some states like let you apply for it whenever you have like 128 credits or whatever, but others, like every state is different. That's why they even ask you whenever you apply, like, hey, what state are you going to test in? Because everything's different. Like I literally had to send my transcripts to like their, whoever, like the board or whatever of accountancy, so they could, and it kind of just like goes from there. But every state has its own credit requirements and own rules.
gotcha. So right now you are a certified CPA.
I'm
But
actually not. I put a stop to, I just had so much going on, and there's just no, I feel like it was just the wrong timing for me, just because I was in tax season and trying to study during tax season just wasn't happening. And any CPA that I talked to, like they did it out of tax season, because you're supposed to study for these tests like you work a full-time job.
mhm.
So they recommend, you studying like at least, like even with a full-time job, at least like 25 to 35 hours if you can. And, once you hit that 35-hour mark, it's like, well, when do you sleep? Because I have a full-time job. Like a lot of us have a full-time job,
Mhm.
and a lot of us will start studying for these type of things after graduation. But after graduation, for most people, you're looking for a full-time job. So you're looking for a 9 to 5. But
Ah,
I put a hold to it for a little bit, just because they're revamping the exams right now. So there's
mhm.
going to be like a whole new blueprint that is being set up for the year of 20. They already talked about it, but for the year of 2023, that's when it's all happening.
Gotcha. Okay, so all right, let's get the timeline right. So you got your bachelor's.
Yes.
Did you complete your master's?
Yes.
So you have a master's degree now. You just haven't taken the exam to
Correct.
become a certified public accountant.
Yes.
Okay, okay, gotcha. Okay, so that clears it up. So at the end of this, now you have your master's. What was the total student loan, just student loan kabobble? What was your total?
76K. Yeah. 76,000 about, roughly.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, that gives me my
I
heart,
know.
my heart, my heart. Okay, but no, okay. So let's go with it. Let's go with it. So you have your 78K, almost 80K in student loan debt. What was your credit card debt, finally finishing, or when you stopped accumulating it?
Oh, probably around like 14,000.
Okay. So we're almost at like 100 grand
Yes.
total between the two. And
Mm-hmm.
was there any other miscellaneous debt like card debt,
Nope.
anything along those lines?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So you got the credit card debt and then you have your student loan debt, which is
Mm-hmm.
normal, right? You see that this isn't uncommon.
Right.
At what point did you realize that you needed to start taking control of your finances and really start hammering this stuff out?
I think it was honestly like at least 2 or 3 years ago. I was just so tired of being stressed out about not having money, not having money for just like little things like, hey, I want to go like grab a bite to eat. And I won't even spend a lot, but it's like, okay, well, I might need this like $10 for, for something later. I was like, hey, I probably shouldn't spend that. It's, just to keep it in there. I was just really tired of being stressed out and worrying about money all the time. And then like I was constantly thinking about it and it was literally just giving me anxiety, and I think at that point I was just like, okay, I have to do something about this. And around that time at this old church I was at, it was smaller. Um, they did Financial Peace University with, you've heard of that course, right? With Dave Ramsey. Um,
Absolutely. Love it.
yeah. So I mean, it was free at my church, like they paid for it. So I was like, well, why the heck not? Like let me learn something. Cause and it was just one of the things where like, okay, well, if I keep stressing about this and like my church is just like, hey, like this is what we're gonna do. I had no idea they were doing it. They just like said at the end of church once, I was like, hey, like um this is what we're offering or whatever. Please let us know if you're interested. So I was like, okay. So I signed up for it, went through the whole course because why not? It was free. They I think you kind of like put in a little like a half a deposit or something, but then they reimbursed you if you like what after you went through the course. And after going through that and just kind of learning the basics of just like how to get rid of your debt and just what to save for all this and all that, and it made me realize that there were people in there that were older than me that was also having the same problems. I think it's almost like eye opening for me is because I knew that I wasn't alone with some of these problems. Like I'm not the only one that has debt and doesn't, and I'm not the only one that doesn't know how to, I guess, manage it yet. So it was kind of cool to see people around like my age in my church group, but also just like people who are like married with kids and like just or just older couples who were married but or that didn't have kids or something, but they accumulated debt somehow by like, I don't know, their mortgage or just credit card debt. So it was just, I guess, cool to see, like you're not alone in this. Like there's people with you and you don't have to do this alone. If you don't know something, ask.
Yeah, and I think it's very enlightening what you said, right? Because we walk around every day and we really have no clue what someone's financial situation is.
Right.
Right. They can pull up to you in a nice Ferrari and you can think like, oh, this guy's got his stuff together. He's probably the CEO of the company, but really he could be on a repossession list. And we never know.
Right.
So when you get into a class like that and you're surrounded by people who are being financially vulnerable and
Hmm.
saying, look, I'm dealing with the same issues you are, now you kind of now when you walk around, you realize like out of these 100 people, there's probably 20 of them that are going through the same thing I am, even though we
Right.
don't talk about it,
Right.
right? Which is, I mean, it can be embarrassing. So
Hmm.
it's not something that I'm like, everybody should talk about everything.
Oh
But
yeah.
so I want to point out, like, you got your master's in accounting. And there's two things happening, right? First of all, you have your master's in accounting and you're still feeling anxiety when it comes to money and personal finance, right? So, and also you have your master's in accounting and you're still willing to take like a financial class in order to learn more and get different perspectives on personal finances, like Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover and
Hmm.
Financial Peace University that you were referring
Right.
to. So I want to point that out, right? Because a lot of people have a lot of pride and they'll say, look, I went to school, I got my master's in accounting. I don't need no financial advice from nobody. Like I know everything. But you're kind of like a lifelong learner. Is like, no, 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 no. I don't know everything. And this
Right.
is an opportunity to get in here and learn more. So why not take that opportunity?
Yeah, I just like learning from a lot of just different people because obviously all of us don't come from the same background. Like my financial situation, I'm sure, is different than yours, and it's different than the next person. So I just, yeah, like you said, I'm a lifelong learner. I mean, I buy books all the time just to self-educate, and just I like hearing other people's perspectives about how they, just about certain topics, or anytime I post something or anytime somebody else posts something, I'm like, oh, like I never looked at it that way. Or um there was something I recently commented on about, should you pay off your debt, or do can you pay off your debt and invest at the same time? And I
I
like
saw
said,
that. I
yes,
read that. I
yeah,
read your
that
comment
one.
on that. Yep.
And I was just like, oh no, I just, because as much as I like Dave Ramsey's course, like, and as I like got older, you kind of realize there's other perspectives. Like for him, I like some of the stuff that he does, but also I disagree with some of the things that he does as well, just once you start teaching yourself and learning from other people, and getting all these different perspectives, you kind of just form your own opinion, and like how you want to do things. Like what you do might not work for me, what I do might not work for you or the next person, like you kind of have to find what works for you and your family, or like just you yourself individually, and just go from there. I feel like his course is made for just like your average size, like average person household. But yeah,
Yeah.
I just like learning from different people. It's kind of cool to see where people come from in their, or even like see their financial perspective.
Yeah, I had Matthew Meyer on episode 15, and he said something. He's like, the key to all of this financial stuff
Hmm.
is take what you want and leave what you don't. So I might do something that I might do 10 things, and you might like five of them, and you might dislike five of them. That
Hmm.
doesn't mean just scrap everything I say, right? Take the
Right.
information that you agree with and that you can implement in your own life and leave the rest. That's what I do with Dave Ramsey. I don't follow his plan down to the T, but he's
Yeah.
got some great principles. He's taught me so
Yeah.
much. So just because I don't agree with one thing he says doesn't mean to scrap everything, right? It's just like, okay, I don't agree with that, so I'm not going to go down that path. But
Hmm.
these are the things I do agree with, and these are the things I'm going to incorporate into my life.
Yeah. It's kind of like you find your golden nugget, like find what you need, take it. And like you said, if you don't have to take all of it.
Mhm.
You take what you need.
Okay, so let's go ahead and keep going down the road. So you take this financial peace class, you
Hmm.
learn his principles. So what was your plan going forward?
Um, like I was just like, okay, how are we gonna tackle this? I think I came, you have to get out of the like denial phase of like, I don't have a problem. But I started listening out, I was kind of following like what he was doing, because I was like, okay, how are we going to, the first thing that he has is like, okay, save the $1,000 for your emergency fund. And I was like, okay, I did that. And I like wrote the date down or what. I'm like, okay, great. Don't have to touch that for a little bit, like let's move it on. And then the next step obviously is like, okay, how are we going to pay down this debt? I wrote down all my debts, like from like each credit card that I had. And then I wrote down like my, my all like my student loans, that how it gets set up, like it's broken down in groups or whatever. Wrote all those down. And I was just looking at it, I was like, man, like how is this going to be possible? But I knew it was going to be possible because like I've seen other people do it. So it wasn't impossible. And I think I just came up after writing down all my debts and realizing like where my money was going, and like what I actually like needed to pay for and like get rid of. I think whenever I've paid off one of my like lower credit cards, and like going from there, because for me, I like using the debt snowball just because I like seeing the momentum, especially like the with like paying down my credit cards or whatever. So once I started paying one down and I started like was on this trail like paying like more of it, I was like, oh, like I don't know, it was one of those light bulb moments for me, because I got to see it, because I was the one who like wrote it all down or like put it in an Excel sheet, would literally, um kind of I would try to automate some of my payments, and then I was seeing progress, like I was like, oh, okay, like I paid off this card, like I paid off this, like And then I think it was just once I started, listing everything out, like listing all my debts out and just looking at it and just accepting it myself, like, hey, I have this amount of debt that obviously like my fault, but also, I can get rid of this.
So, a couple things you hit on, right? The debt
Mhm.
snowball. I'm just going to explain that real quick for the listeners if you guys haven't heard. It's basically where you list out all of your debts, smallest to largest, by balance, regardless of the interest rate, pay minimum payments on all of your debt, and whatever money you have left over, you put it all on the smallest balance debt. So if you have a credit card that has $1,000 balance at 30%, but you have a credit card with 2,000 at 10%, or well, I messed that up. Yeah, okay. Just paying off the lowest balance first. That way it snowballs, and as the snowball rolls downhill, as you're paying off more debts, the snowball gets bigger. And that's of course a part of the Dave Ramsey um track of financial independence, financial peace. And of course, I'm going to be linking Dave Ramsey in the show notes below. So, where does that leave you right now, Amy? Because I know you're investing, but you also have tons of debt, which Dave Ramsey would say, no, 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 no.
Right.
Right. So,
He told
where
me
does
I'm doing
that,
it wrong.
yeah, yeah. So, where does that leave you right now as for credit card and student loan debt? So, you started with about 90K
Mhm.
total. What are you looking like right now?
I think I have about 9,000 in credit card debt, so I got that number down. Um, and then I haven't really touched on my student loans just because one, they keep pushing the date back,
Mhm.
and a lot of my student loans are actually really low in like interest rate. So it's like, why should I mean, obviously that debt, like it sucks, but it's like, why should I throw the majority of my money towards that if it's, for me, I feel like it was I guess this is kind of like my opinion, but um a lot of my loans are just in that low, like very low interest rate. And so if I can put more money into investing or just like into sinking funds for me, like that's what I'm going to do. Um but yeah, they were talking about, I just saw it in the head or something got posted about how like maybe it might get pushed back further, like it was supposed to start back up in May or something, but it might get pushed further than that. So I was like, oh well, that kind of changes the game. Um
Gotcha. So you have $9,000 in credit card debt. So
mhm.
can you walk me through the philosophy on why you're investing? Because credit card debt interest rates normally are substantial, anywhere from like
Yes.
18 to 30%. And conservatively speaking, you're not really going to get that type of return normally in
Mhm.
investments. So, what is your philosophy on why you choose to invest some of your money instead of throwing it all towards your credit cards?
I don't know. I feel like with me investing now is just going to help me, more in the long run of being financially free. Cause I know for a fact that I can get rid of my credit card debt like very quickly. Um, and I throw, so I usually save, um, more or actually all of my tax return that I get, like my refund, because I usually would get one, but that usually I split that up into all my debts and like throw it all there. So then my money that I earn, like just, working my 9 to 5, and it's not like I invest a lot into my like Roth IRA or anything. It's just, like I think I mostly just do like 100 a month just because I feel like it's one for me, it's doable. And then I still have most of my income going towards my debt. But I also like to pay myself first just because I anybody that I talk to, that was one of the things that I learned late, I feel like. And I think that's why I was always stressed, with the whole money thing was because not just debt, but it's also my mindset was just so different than what it is now with money. Like it took me a while to learn to pay yourself, like the whole thing about paying yourself first. And I was stressing about money was because I would put all my, hard working, like earned money to my debt first. And then I'm sitting here wondering why I don't have money for myself when really, it's one of those things where like, okay, you pay yourself first and then you budget the rest. And I don't,
Gotcha.
yeah. And I don't know why, like it took me so long to learn that, but I'm glad I did. But I don't invest a lot of like my money. I think like most of it goes into debt, but I just like to keep some, like put some towards investing just so I know that it's going to help me like further down the road.
So, okay, so basically you understand that mathematically it's what's the word I'm looking for? Mathematically, it's not the optimal route,
Mm-hmm.
but it still gives you more peace of mind doing it this way. Because
Yeah.
basically the way you're doing it is if you put your money into a Roth IRA and like an index fund or something, you might get anywhere, I don't know, 8 to 10%. But the credit cards are accumulating 18 to
Mm-hmm.
whatever percent they are. So you realize you're losing money in the long run, but it makes you feel better to at least have retirement started. Does that
Yes.
sound about right? Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, personal finance is personal, right? I wouldn't do it
Right.
myself, but it's whatever helps you sleep at night. And I have no doubt that you're still going to pay off this student loan, not student loans, pay off this credit card debt relatively quickly, but you're just not taking the optimal path. You're taking the path of uh just the Amy path. I mean, it is
Yeah.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
It works for
personal
me. Like
finance.
I said, it works for me and it might not work for you, but it works for me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Personal finance is personal. So when do you project that the credit cards are going to be gone, like out of
This
your
year.
life
This
this
year.
year?
Yeah.
When? Because I'm going to hold you
Oh,
accountable.
probably I'm thinking at the end of this year, like December, maybe November, because one of my goals this month, actually, I think I posted it because somebody asked me a question. I was like, oh, this is what I want to do, is to pay off all of my credit card debt that's under 1,000.
Mhm. So
And I'm
when are you going to
close.
do that? Oh, this month?
This month, yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
So you said,
it's a hard goal because I was like looking at myself. I was like, wait a minute, but I can do this. So
mhm.
if not March, like obviously I'm hoping for March, but if it happens in April, like mid-April, I'm good with that too. But I can clear out my credit card debt by this year, by the end of
Okay.
this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold you to that. So don't try and run. Don't try to delete your Instagram or anything because I'm coming for that. I'm in
Block
November.
him.
So you already alluded to this a little bit
Hmm.
earlier. And I have a financial advisor that comes on the podcast quite often.
Oh,
And me and him have different opinions on student loans on whether they need to be paid off or not. And he makes some amazing points. And yeah, he's opening my eyes to different possibilities when it comes to student loans. So shout
okay.
out to Joey. Do you what is your long-term plan for your student loans? Because they're not a priority right now due to being such a low interest rate. But what is your long-term plan? Do you ever plan on like hammer down paying it off, or do you plan on amortizing it over 30 years, or what is your plan going forward right now?
You know what? I was thinking about this. It's funny that you asked that because I was thinking about this the other day. If I paid off all my credit card debt, especially if I could get my like the ones that are like under 1,000, like just completely paid off. I was gonna start using, that towards my student loans since they are like a lower interest than my credit card bills or like my credit cards. Um, I was gonna start chipping away at my student loans and kind of doing it. And since like I think they're still at zero, I think they're still at 0% interest. So I was just gonna chip away at do like using the debt snowball again with my student loans and chipping it away at that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I'm gonna butcher this example. I'm gonna completely butcher it, but it was phenomenal, man. It was so phenomenal when he said it. Joey was talking about this in relation to student loans.
Hmm.
It's called the $2 million mistake, and
Okay.
essentially, it was the difference between paying double student loan. Okay, so you amortize your student loans in, let's say, a 30-year period,
Mm-hmm.
and you have two choices. Either you pay double the payments and knock it out in 15 years, or you make the normal payment and you invest the same amount. You invest it into like an index fund.
Okay.
So let's just say, for example, the payment you come up with is $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Either you pay $2,000 a month on student loans and knock them out, or you put 1,000 in student loans and 1,000 onto investing.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the equation, it ended up being, at the time your student loans get paid off, you'll have like $2 million in investments. It's something crazy. It's like, you can go back, if you guys are listening to this, you can go back to the episode. I want to say he gave that example on episode 10, but it was just phenomenal to hear that example, to realize like this is a very strategic strategy in order
Mm-hmm.
to eliminate student loans while also building wealth.
Yes.
So it's something you might want to look into, when,
Yeah,
when
I
you
was
get to
like,
the student loans.
yeah, no, I'm gonna have to find that episode.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Like when he said it, I was like, crazy.
Mind blowing. Yeah.
Yeah. So Amy, if you could go back and redo this, right? Redo college,
Mm-hmm.
the student loans, the credit cards. If you could go back and redo it, knowing what you know today, what would you change? How would you do it?
I want to be swiping my credit cards left and right.
But yeah,
Buy
besides
whatever.
that, that's the easy one. That's the easy one.
Right. Oh man. See, I don't. That's one thing I like. I hate. Obviously, I hate my where my student loan like debt is, but I don't regret taking out those loans only because I got like my like education wise, I got what I paid for. And I know some people can't say that, like the school that I went to. So I went to Maryville University in St. Louis. It's a private school. It was funny because I didn't know that it was a private school whenever I like applied, but I like what they taught me there, I used in my career. I remember getting my first job out of college, and literally my freshman year of accounting came back to haunt me, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I was just like, I literally did this like 4 or 5 years ago, and everything just like came back to like everything that I've learned in school, like I use now in my career field. So I mean, I don't like my student loan, debt, but I also don't regret it. So I
Yeah,
don't,
that's respectable.
yeah. I mean, if anything, I would not have went into biology. Like I would have just straight went into, like accounting and did that, like accounting and finance, and did that, like just kept with that route instead of like starting in science and okay, wait, never mind. Like I don't want to do this anymore. But what happened, like you said earlier, like it happens, like everybody doesn't, you don't know what you want to do. And yeah, like you said earlier too, I don't know if college is the best, I guess, time to like try to find your way, or like try to find yourself, I guess, just because you're just in a pool, like a bigger pool with a lot of other, just people or whatever. So
It's an expensive place to find yourself. That's what I like
yeah,
to say. It's
that
an expensive, like you can find yourself a lot
yes,
of places. That's an expensive place to
yes.
find yourself.
But yeah, I don't, like I said, I don't like my student loan debt, but I also don't regret it because what I learned in school truly did help me in my career field now.
Do you think you could have gone to a cheaper college?
Yes. Oh yes.
Yeah.
I wish I did. What is it? A plus. We had this thing in high school where you could do like A plus. It was called A plus tutoring. So basically, you do all these like tutoring hours. You go to like a middle school, or I think mostly like middle school or even elementary school, and you put in community service hours to do tutoring, and in return they gave you money. I mean, it worked at mostly community colleges, but I should have like used that. I think they gave you at least $2,000. Like that's a free $2,000. Like all I had to do was tutor people,
Mhm.
like tutor middle schoolers or whatever. And And if you completed all those hours, like you got that tuition basically. And you could use it towards, books, whatever, like tuition, materials, like all that stuff. I wish I would have started out in a 2-year college to do all my gen eds there and then transferred to a 4-year, because why are we paying, credit for a 4-year university, especially whenever your first year or so are general education, like we just did this in high school. Why are we doing this in college again? And like, why should we pay this much money when at a community college it's like a little bit, it's like half the price, of a university. So that's one thing I wish I would have done, was use like kind of take advantage of the stuff that was offered, in high school to help you with like financing college.
Yeah, I think there are just so many different, I'd say, college saving techniques. I mean,
Mhm.
like off the top of my head, you got our school had early college, or I think it was called early college, where your first 2 years are high school and your second 2 years are college. And it's 4 years of high school credits, and you get it's an associate's degree at the end of it.
Oh.
Absolutely, and it was free. Absolutely ridiculous program. It was amazing. I didn't do it, of course. I wasn't smart enough. But the point is, like, there are these things. You have AP classes where
Mhm.
you take the class in high school and you can get credit for it as long
Yep.
as you pass the exam. They have things like, when I was in college, I found out about the CLEP exams. Like, if you are educated enough in a field, instead of taking a class and paying for it, you can just take one exam and get credit for it. So the whole personal finance class, it was the last class I needed to complete my associates. I just clept it and I just took the exam, passed it, and they gave me the credit hours. And I didn't have to pay and sit through
Mhm.
class for a whole semester. So there are
Yeah.
just so many different options. And then I'm not even going to get into scholarships, grants, and all the
Right.
other things. So there are just so many different options for paying for college. And like
Yes.
the great tip you just gave, like your first 2 years, go to community college. It's the same education. It's
The
math, science, and art.
yes. History, like what, like you have to take all those gen eds again. And I think one of the things I wish I did in college too was, there were things that you found out like, oh, you could have tested out of that,
Mhm.
where like, okay, instead of being 2 years or whatever, like taking like a whole year of math, I could have only taken like one semester, like that's less money, like there are older kids who, you're in college, so like you're in classes with like everybody of all different age groups or whatever. So people are like, oh yeah, like you could have tested out for that. I'm like, what? And so then whenever I learned that, I would try to tell people, like try to give like my advice to freshmen or whatever, or just whoever, like, oh yeah, you might want to see if you can test out of that class, or like test out of it, and like so you don't have to take it. You can, start with something like another level, like a higher level, to where, that's one class that you have to pay for and that you have to take. Like I think
Mhm.
that's one of the things I wish I knew whenever I went into college, was like, hey, can I test out of this? And if you can, why pay for it?
Amen. Amen. Yeah. But I mean, even when I was that age, I was listening.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
We thought we were grown then.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, Amy, let's transition forward a little bit. What made you decide to start publicly tracking your financial journey with financial fitness?
I think I wanted to start that page, I think last year, probably in 20, like towards like the end of 2020, going into 2021. And I was just like, no, like I don't know if I want to do that. Only because, it kind of just gets into like, okay, who's gonna listen to me? Like you kind of question like who's gonna listen to this. But then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do this for myself, because I want to track this is how I'm gonna track my progress. And if I can help one person, I feel like I've done my job. Like if I can inspire one person, I think that's very helpful, because maybe, you know, then they'll not just like share what I have to say, or like share like my post or whatever, but maybe they have their own story that they want to tell, and like they're inspired, and they tell their story and somebody else gets inspired by their story. But I wanted to start this page just because I think one of the biggest issues in America is financial literacy. People don't know about these things. And I feel like I love like our community that we're in, like we all bring something different to the table. Like I feel like I've learned a lot from all of you guys that I follow and like the people, like all of us that follow each other, just like our finance, like creator community. I feel like there needs to be more of us. But I started mostly like for me just to like keep like just share my story and track all my stuff and my journey to financial freedom and like being debt free, but also I want to share this information that I know because it's no secret, it's out there, but I think people just don't know where to start and you don't know how to decipher it sometimes.
No,
So
you made so many great points. So I love that you say, like, who's going to listen to me? Right. Because that's the exact same thing I said when I started this podcast. Like, who am I? I'm a 23-year-old guy. Like, I have a computer and like, I'm no special guy. Right. I'm
right.
not flashy. I'm not this or that. Who's going to listen to me? But then I realized, I'm like, if I can document where I started, once I get to where I'm going, because I know I'm going to get there, I know I'm going to be a millionaire, I know I'm going to have financial independence. People are going to be able to relate to this James today much more than they can relate to the James in 10 years or 20 years. So I love that you bring that up because that's like a limiting belief that I see often. I've experienced and I see other people experience, but it's like people really as you can see now after starting it,
Yeah.
people really care and people can really resonate with
Yeah.
you. The second thing, I don't know why I had this stigma around personal finance, but I always thought that it was cocky. I always thought that it was like I don't want to be that cocky guy flashing money on it because you've seen it. Oh,
Yeah.
pull up in a Lambo and I got the jewelry and I got the big old mansion, and that's what you normally see on social media. But then you realize there's a whole community of everyday people like you and I that are starting from somewhere and just trying to provide education on the way
Mhm.
up.
Yeah.
So
Just like if you and I, like we've made our money mistakes, but if we can teach somebody not to do what we did, you already have the upper hand. Like don't do what we like, don't like whenever I was in education, like so many people look down on like trade schools. Well, first of all, I wish I did something like that because it's 2 years and you come out doing what you want to do and you bait stuff for most of those jobs because like some of those jobs like it's for people who don't really like want to do those type of jobs, right? But they pay so well. So it's like you do 2 years of your schooling, you know, you maybe have little debt, but you come out one getting a job in your field and two probably making more than the people who have 4-year degrees, you know? And I think whenever I was in education, I was trying to tell the students that I had like look into this because if you're telling me that you don't like school and you don't want to do a 4-year, then look at a 2-year. What are you good, and it's like, what are you good at? Start
yeah,
looking into it, start researching it. Like there are so many possibilities out there, especially like now, like I go back and like see my high school and there's just so many things that this place has like just education itself has offered versus from whenever I was in high school, and I'm like, you guys need to take advantage of this because this was not here. Like these things that that are being offered were not here whenever I was here. So but yeah, I think our journeys, like everybody's in our financial community, like our journeys is going to help somebody just because like please learn from our mistakes, like this is what we did back then and like we learned it quote unquote late, but if they can like learn it now, like you're already ahead of the game.
that's why Gen Z money exists right there because we are coming up, we're entering that adult phase. So these are
Yeah, you
things that we've neglected to mention at all. Like, why don't we learn about taxes in school? Why don't we learn about insurance in school? These are all things that
yeah.
everyone at every point in your life, you will need insurances. You will need to do taxes. These are things chemistry, most people aren't going to use,
Right. If you go in that field, yes, yes, use it. But for the
yeah.
most part, yeah, like you said, how you doing your taxes, especially whenever you're just like, I only have a W-2, like a college student or even in high school, like learn how to do that. Do not pay somebody to do that when you can do yourself because it's so easy. It's so easy to learn. Like you go on, either H&R Block or just like TurboTax and like do it yourself. It literally tells you what to do,
Mhm.
like what numbers do you see in box one and box two? Like it literally walks you through everything. And I think that's one of the important things that I think people need to learn how to do is, especially whenever you're just starting out, working, like you're not a full-time employee yet because you're in school, like learn how to do these. I feel like that's like a basic skill, or it
Yeah,
should be part
it
of a
should
basic
be.
should be part of a basic skill to learn is, learn how to do your taxes. Obviously, if it gets more complicated, then yes, that's when you like branch out and like, okay, let me hire a CPA or like let me take it to, whomever, like a small business or like a just like a business, to help me do this because I don't know all the ins and outs. And like, obviously, this is their profession, so let them do it. But whenever you're just like, oh, I just have like one W-2 and like that's it, like, please learn how to do that by yourself. Like, don't pay somebody else to do that for you, or don't put it on your parents because at one point or another, you're gonna have to learn this.
Exactly. So at any point in your, financial fitness documentation journey,
Mhm.
did you ever feel kind of embarrassed about your own? Because a lot of people feel embarrassment surrounding finances, whether it's because of their debt, income, things like that. And you kind of put everything out there. Like you don't hold back anything. Like you explain how much you saved this month and how much you put on debt. So at any point, did you feel any embarrassment?
I think it was the number post of my debt. I think I thought long and hard about like, okay, when do I post? Like, I want to post it, but when do I post it? Not saying that it has to do with like the time of day or anything, but I was, just like questioning or having second thoughts of like, do I want to post this? Because it's such a big number. Like people see that number, they're like, oh, is this her savings? No, no, like it is the opposite. So I think that post, but I really like it because I was I like to be vulnerable with my following, or not even just my following, with the community. Like I think we need to talk about these hard things because people don't want to talk about it. Money used to be such a trigger for me, and now it's not. Like I can talk about it, like all day if I really wanted to. But I feel like that post for me meant a lot just because I was opening myself up, and just like and it was so great after I posted it too, because throughout that time that I was posting it, like so many people commented and was just like, hey, like, thanks for being transparent. Like, because social media has made it such like like everything's good here, like things are perfect. Like, look what I bought. Like, I don't know, like, this is what it is, like I have debt and I know I'm not the only one that has debt. So do I think like, yes, there's some good debt, but with that, like I explained in the post, it was like, okay, this is mostly student loans and like the other portion of it is credit card. Like I just wanted to be real and like authentic with people and let others know, like, hey, if you have debt, like you're not alone in this. If your number is lower or higher than this, whether it is lower or higher, you still have debt. At the end of the day, we all have debt.
Mhm.
And I think that's what I wanted people to see. Like, hey, like I'm not saying people have to post theirs, but I got a lot of positive, I guess, comments on that post because a lot of people were just like, hey, like, thanks. Like, it takes a lot to do that, to basically put yourself out there and be like, hey, this is like this number, like, this is how much I owe, this is not how much I owe, like, you own. And a lot of people were just, I guess, thanking me for being transparent and like just being real, and that's what I want to be like with this page, like I feel like we have to have these hard conversations because if you're not going to have them with yourself, or if you're not going to have them at all and like I guess finally accept it, then when are you going to accept it, because I feel like once I accepted like my debt and just like all the financial stuff that I was going through, I finally like just got to sit down with myself and be like, okay, this is what I have. This is what you start coming up with a game plan of like, well, I don't want to keep feeling like this. So, it's one of those things where like, it's something you actually can control. So get a hold of it.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's all about creating accountability, right?
Mhm.
And people can only hold you accountable if you're truthful with them,
Right.
right? If you're consistently lying or putting on a show for people, then they can't really hold you accountable to that because it's not real.
Right.
Okay, Amy. So you talked about wanting to pay off your all of your credit card debt this year.
Mhm.
Are there any other short-term goals that you hope to accomplish, like financially, within the next 6 months to a year?
So I'm actually saving up for my first house. I've been doing
Okay.
that. Um, who knows if that's, I mean, I would love to have it happen this year as well. I think I gave my, like, kind of scared myself a little bit because like, wait a minute, like I still have debt, but like, can I actually do this to, like own a home? And because that's a big commitment. Yeah, paying off credit cards, buying my first house this year. Trying to think what else. Like, I think I'm just like mostly tackling my debt this year, but um reading more books.
Yeah.
Like just more self-education about, topics that I don't really talk about. And I was just thinking about this the other day too, how I want to like educate myself on kind of just get down to like the nitty-gritty of things, like I feel like right now we're kind of just like, this is kind of just the beginning, and kind of it's almost like just kind of like getting your feet wet, but I
Mhm.
kind of want to start diving into other like topics that I would love to talk about on my page, to kind of just open the doors up of, I feel like sometimes people don't talk, just some of the topics that I want to talk about, people don't talk about it enough, or, it's kind of like a trick, like earlier, like I said, some of the stuff is, it may be a trigger for you, or you may just like feel some type of way about it. But I feel like we need to have these conversations because if you don't, like, when are you going to have them?
I feel that. I feel that. Well, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from doing it.
Right.
So there's nothing stopping you from
Yeah.
having the conversation. The Lord knows I love a good conversation. Like even if I don't agree with someone, I
Yeah.
love a good conversation because
Yeah.
you learn so much. I
Yeah.
mean, I really wish more people could have conversations with each other, whether your opinions are the same or
Yeah.
if your opinions differ. That's why I
Yeah.
kind of love this conversation, is because like you're taking a path that I 100% wouldn't do and I would never recommend, but that's
Right.
okay because personal finance is personal. And
Yeah.
I love getting into the brain of Amy to understand why you make the choices you do. So yeah, you have the power to have whatever conversation you want to, especially on
Yeah.
your social media. So what are some of your long-term goals for your finances that you hope to accomplish within the next 5 to 10 years? And what does the finish line look like?
Ooh. Um, I mean, besides getting rid of my student loan debt, um, man, 5 or 10 years. One, I freaking better be a millionaire. That's like the end goal, but I just want the financial freedom to do whatever I want when I want, whether that's traveling or just hanging out with friends and family more. Um, but I do like, part of it is like I know that I need to, but also want to get rid of my student loan debt because then, I can build on my net worth. I that number is really like important to me, or just like to know, just because then you kind of know like where you stand in your financial aspect of your life. Obviously I don't want to be paying on my student loan for the next 15 years. Like that's a no for me. Like that's
Mm,
just not gonna like I'm not paying on this for the rest of my life. Like I don't want to. So once I get this whole credit card thing down and like literally like start tackling my student loan debt, like the possibilities are endless. um but yeah, mostly student loans, but I also want to keep investing so I can get, my net worth number up. And then um I'm hoping I could turn financial fitness into my full-time job.
mhm.
that's probably the end goal. And it would be cool to kind of just like go around and just, sit on panels or just like talk to, I don't even care. It was just like talking to high school students, like travel around like to different schools or whatever, even like different, I guess, like corporations or companies to talk about financial literacy and help, and um, whatever I can do or say to help the next person.
Yeah, it seems I get that vibe that you have like all you want to do is help other people.
Yes.
Like and that's a very common theme of a lot of people that are willing to share their vulnerable spot on social media. Like if you're willing to share your financial opinion, your current financial situation, it's not to boast about it. It's to
Right.
provide education and hopefully reach those people who are either in the same spot you are or on their way to being in the spot you are. So that's phenomenal. But Amy, we're going to transition into the last questions of the podcast. And of course, I ask these questions to every guest that I bring on. Are you ready?
I hope so.
All right, Amy. Question number one. Everyone has their own definition of what it means to have financial peace. What is your definition?
Oh, I think it's just um I feel like I respond to this type of question, or just like anytime I see something like this, is getting to do what I want when I want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
No
mean,
time, no time, on anything. Just, yeah, what I want to do and when I want to do it.
you know, a lot of people do that now. Even though they aren't, at least in my opinion, they aren't in the financial space to be afforded that opportunity.
Hmm.
But there are definitely people that do that now. So maybe you want to do yours from a financial strength
Yes.
instead of
Yeah.
because you can technically do what you want when you want. You quit your job tomorrow if you want to, but
Right.
well, we'll
I
sit on
won't.
that one. We'll
I
sit
won't
on
have the the financial stability.
that. Exactly.
Might be.
Question number two. So, if there are listeners out there that want to start building wealth and they have no clue where to get started, what would you tell them?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, honestly, come like I feel like I would kind of do what I did, just come to the realization of where you are financially. Um, I guess see where you are financially yourself. Be aware of, of your like your mental health, like where it's at. And then I would just start I honestly just started listing out all the stuff that I had to that I owed. But
Mhm.
if they could find if you people could find a mentor, like they say once you find a mentor, like keep that person, I would try to find that's I feel like that's what I should have done. Like try to find a mentor.
Okay.
And then obviously like they're gonna coach you to like tell you like where to go. But I think people just need to come to the realization first of and like get out of that denial phase of where they are.
Yeah, I think that's super duper important. A lot of reasons that financial problems do exist is because people don't realize how messed up their financial position
Mhm.
is. Like they think that it's okay as long as you're paying all your bills on time,
Right.
that you're in a good spot, not realizing like you miss one paycheck and now you're underwater.
Yeah.
So, you're not on a boat, you don't have a life jacket on, you're kind of
Right.
just bobbing in the water and
Yeah.
hoping a wave doesn't come,
Mhm.
which is fine. It's better than, actively going underwater, but you could be in such a better predicament. But a lot of
Yes.
people don't realize what danger they're in when they have tons of debt and they're living the paycheck to paycheck, and
Mhm.
how one minor inconvenience like a tire blowing out can really snowball into something much greater. So I love that. Like self-reflect and analyze where you are, because it's not always the best place.
Right.
So, if there's one thing you could advise everyone to avoid doing to build wealth, what would it be?
Oh, hmm. That's a tough one. It is, but it's not. Um, I would say to avoid doing to build wealth. Um, Man, I had it like at the tip of my tongue. Like I know what I want to say, but it's not coming out. Um, I think, oh, obviously don't spend more than you make.
Well, see, okay, I don't like how you said that, Amy, because you said it like it's something obvious. Like that's not an obvious point
No, it's
that a
not because
lot of people.
I was like, I used to do that. I used to spend more than I make all the time.
Yeah, because you said it like, oh, everybody
Oh,
knows this, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Like, no, 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 no. That's very
uh,
important. Like,
yeah.
not everybody
Don't
knows it.
yeah, don't spend more than you make for sure. That's like number one because I literally used to do it all the time. Obviously that's how I racked up the debt. Um, I think just I think once I started like going through this journey myself, I think just man, mental health and money just connect so much.
Mhm.
But okay, so not spending more than you make, but also um I don't I'm trying to figure out how to like say this.
Well, you bring up a point that like mental health and money, they do go hand in hand because we all know that finances can cause certain levels of anxiety and depression,
Mhm.
and even in some cases, post traumatic stress disorder to some extent. I like a saying from Dave Ramsey like, personal finance is 90% behavior and 10% head knowledge.
Yes.
Everyone knows, like, everyone deep down knows what you just said, right? Like, live on less than you make. It's a very obvious rule, but if you don't have the 90% behavior, you're not going to be able to do it. So my
Mhm.
question for you is, if someone is currently living on more than they make, what would you tell them to do?
I think they would just have to I don't know, you kinda just have to like it goes back to just like being self-reflective. Like, do you really just want to keep do you see yourself doing this um like your whole life? Like, do you want to keep going? Like it's so because it's so exhausting, like just the anxiety buildup and the worry, like it's so just because like I've done it, like it's so exhausting and it takes so much out of you. And I feel like the stress that you feel, like your body and like your mind, like it will feel it too, like all that stuff like just builds up in your body and like it just makes you like you can feel it, like it just builds up and it gets to the point where you start getting like sick or because you're so tired from it. Like do you really like I think it just comes back to self reflection of like do you really want to be doing this the rest of your life, like living more than your means, but also and then you realizing like like all the time or like every month or whatever, you don't have enough for X, Y, or Z. Like do you want to keep living like that? Do you want to keep living paycheck to paycheck? Don't you get tired of your own crap?
Mhm.
And then going back to your first question, like i always thought I always like that quote from Jay-Z where it says if you can't buy it twice you can't afford it. And I was just
Respect. Shout out
yeah,
to
and
Jay Z.
yeah, I know, right? Shout out to Jay-Z. But it's so true, he's like, if you can't buy it twice, then you can't afford it. People who like nice things, and don't get me wrong, I like nice things, but I feel like part of, that statement that, his quote that he made, like it's true.
Yeah,
So
100%. I agree with it. I agree with it, except like a house. Like, if you can't buy a
right.
house twice, I don't know
Yeah.
about that one. But I'm
I don't know.
99.9%.
People do, and like they start Airbnb their house, and like you got people who flip houses, and they're really great at what they do. And
Mhm.
hey, more power to you.
Yeah. Okay, Amy. So, if there is someone out there that doesn't believe they can reach financial peace due to their age, their race, religion, sexual orientation, etc., what would you say to change their mind?
Oh, um, honestly, I would just like I don't know how to, I guess, convince somebody to tell, because sometimes to people like words are just words, but I think honestly, I would give that person like examples of people who have done it. I think some people just need to see that it's possible to be done, like whether it's Dave Ramsey or even just like anybody that we, know of, or anybody that I run into that have in this financial community that I know that have, been debt free and went, they had debt, became debt free because of X, Y, and Z, like show them their journey. I think people just need to see, I guess, evidence or like the support, of other people doing it and knowing that it's possible for them to do it no matter what age you're at. Because there's people that I know now that are in all these different age groups that have reached their financial freedom. They are completely debt free. And they now are the ones teaching other people how to do it themselves. I think for me, I would just, just show that person how it is possible to reach their financial freedom.
What you said, Amy, it's really dangerous. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because I do it. I do it so much that it's become a bad habit of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Because me being Black, we have our own hurdles, and me being young, we have our own hurdles, and
Mm-hmm.
people who are gay or trans, they have their own hurdles, things like that. But it's like when someone who is, let's say someone Black is trying to tell me like, look, it's not possible for us to get ahead, blah, blah, blah. I'll literally say, I did it. So why can't you? And the power that it puts in my hands to say that is like, I just took your main excuse away from you. What excuse are you going to come up with now?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, of course, there'll be other excuses that come along, but it's very powerful to be like, okay, you can't do it because you're a minority. What about this? What about my friend right here who is on her way to become a millionaire? She's a minority and she did it, right? She's first generation or whatever the case is. If
Mm-hmm.
someone is gay and they're like, I can't do it because I'm gay. It's like, look at this person right here. Like, he is gay. Why can't you do it? What's your next excuse? So I will say it's dangerous, but
Oh yeah.
it's dangerous because people will continue to make up, or some people will continue to make up excuses
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want their mind changed. But there are those that'll be like, wow, you're right, and go with it. So yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Because I've definitely checked a couple people. I'm like, oh, I'm only 23. I can't do it. Like, no, I'm 23. I own 3 houses. What's your next excuse? Like,
Yeah.
I will teach you how to do it. All you have to do is listen to this podcast. And oh no, I don't want. Okay, well, hey, you don't want to do it. It's not that you
Right.
can't. It's
Yeah.
that you don't
Yeah.
want to, which
Yes.
is fine. Which is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amy, this has been such an awesome, awesome, awesome conversation. I'm really glad that you came on and had this conversation with me. If people want to know more about you, where can they find out more about you?
Well, if you are on Instagram, I run the Financial Fitness Guide Instagram page. It's all in lowercase letters. But yeah, you can find me there if you're on the gram.
And of course, guys, I'm going to link her Instagram in the show notes below with Dave Ramsey's content if that's something you guys are interested in looking at. And of course, you guys can reach out to her on Instagram if she's okay with it.
Yeah, totally fine.
But yeah, Amy, I really appreciate you coming on today and having this conversation. It has been absolutely amazing and very enlightening.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It was kind of, like I said, it's always cool to see other or hear other people's opinions and perspectives of their, financial journey and how they do things.
Yeah, absolutely. And just because we don't do it the same way doesn't make your way wrong, and it doesn't make my way right.
Exactly.
Otherwise, personal finance is personal. So I'm
Right.
glad to have someone on who's doing it differently,
Mhm.
but I'd rather talk to someone who's doing it differently than talk to someone who's not doing it at all. So
Right. Thank you so much.
thank you so much, Amy. I hope you have a blessed rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And guys, I really hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Miss Amy. as we went through the interview, you guys realize, I mean, she has student loans. She's still working to pay off credit cards, but that is not stopping her from achieving what we know as financial independence and investing. And even though I pointed out that the route she is not taking is optimal, because I would never suggest someone invest when you still have things like credit card debt, because you're losing money over the long term. But even with that, she understands the process she's going to is not optimal, but personal finance is personal, right? And so as long as you understand what you're doing is not the optimal way and you choose to do something else, at least your choices are intentional. And intentionality with money is, I think, the biggest takeaway from this episode. So I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I really hope a lot of you guys can relate to what Amy is going through, the path she is on, and maybe you can see similarities within yourself that can help you start saving money for retirement, creating an emergency fund, all those things that wealthy people do. And with that being said, guys, of course, I said I will link Dave Ramsey down in the show notes. I feel like he's in every show notes, but this guy does so much for finances. And even if you don't agree with every single thing he says, you can find some value in the content he puts out. So I'm always going to be putting that in the show notes. Of course, I'm going to be linking all of her social medias in the show notes below, where you guys can find her, reach out to her, ask her questions, and pick her brain. She's awesome. She's super duper friendly, and you guys can get a lot of value. But of course, guys, I do offer financial coaching, and that is going to be down in the show notes below. You can schedule a one-on-one consultation for free on my Calendly. Just pick a date, time, and set it up. Also, if you guys don't mind, wherever you're listening to this on, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, please, please, please leave a rating and review on the show. You guys do not understand how much that helps get this show out to other people. And we all know that other person who needs financial education. So I really appreciate that. Of course, you guys can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is in the show notes below. But I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here, guys. I really enjoy you listening to the show. And always remember, I'm your host, James Bowman, and you're only as secure as your ability to perform. So spend your life accumulating assets that can perform for you. Later, guys.